Quick take 3. Bicycle cassette remover out of chain whip out of used axe handle. Everybody's got them. Couple holes, about 6 half-inch holes. Waller them out. Little twist tie. Binds up in there. I didn't even have to hardly touch the thing. Just popped it right off. Put this on. You know, leveraged my fulcrum a bit there. All right, action. Couldn't find much on these old Shimano hubs, so I just been laying the pieces out, 17mm wrenches. Finally got to the point where like this, and this all went on top of this. There's kind of an oblong bolt, and I'm just carefully unscrewing that. Of course, I remembered how many threads or inches of the bolt are on either side, 4 or 5mm. And I kind of see some bearings in there even. I think I could at least like get it open, wipe it out, maybe even spray it with some cleaner or something, and then like force some more grease in there. Maybe I won't mess things up. I'm notorious for messing stuff like this up. I'm more of an entertainer, by the way, than a mechanic, so go bring up your genius mechanics with every $500 wrench from the bike shop if you want to see them. All right, action. There's little bearings. There's all my seals in the order they came off the wheel here. And I pulled out the axle, which had some grease on it. It didn't have too much dirt or rust, so that was a good sign. And I placed the wheel vertical because every time I tilt it and lay it flat, these bearings just go everywhere. Which I got a crooked table and holes in the ground, and I don't know. Hopefully I don't have terrible luck. I can somehow figure this wheel out and get it cleaned up and get those bearings back into place and get them re-greased. Alrighty, cleaning this off, get the old shop towel and push it down there. I made a first pass with some WD-40, then I sprayed it with this, the Finish Line spray cleaner. And you know, some people might have some fancy tools, but this was all just down here. It's just full of dirt and grime and who knows what metal fragments. And I just use the tip of the screwdriver, sometimes a double over the towel, and I can like clean those harder to get parts without, of course, piercing the towel and scraping them. So I thought that the bike for a 2000 looked pretty good. This side had some grease and stuff. I'm not going to go crazy spraying it because the grease really doesn't look awful, and these detergents or oils or whatever can cut through stuff. So I might spray it and clean it a little more, but I'm not out to go crazy because there could be some other bearings and grease and seal in the free hub body or whatever. You know, I don't want to cut through anything that's doing me good, and I don't even know that I'll clean these bearings off that much. Give a little once over with my finger. Alright, action. Greasing my wheel. So I've got my hubs cleared out, and I've made my own wheel holder. Like I said, I like keeping the wheel kind of vertical so the bearings just don't fall out as easy. I feel like maybe I'll learn the lesson different. I've definitely failed at this job before. I've kept the bearings separate, like this side is that side, and you know what I mean, because oh, which side was it? No, I mean, and then I took some grease off the lid of the park tool grease and just kind of rolled the bearings in them a little bit. Hard to keep track of those. Hopefully I didn't lose any down there. And then I have all the seals in the order they came out of the wheel. Got the old free hub or cassette off with my axe handle cassette wrench. Some common tools there, all for this job. And then these rags, I find them alongside of the road. They come in handy. Nice degreaser. This Finish Line works good. Got it from the bike shop. Couple 17mm. Greased that. So we're ready to start carefully. Let's see, was this side? Yeah, this side is the right side. I'm going to very carefully, and it's hard to do it with a cell phone. Gonna just try and get those bearings to, let me see if I can hit the zoom button. I'm just sticking them in there, you know. I'm just gonna stick them around that hole like they came out, and the new grease will hopefully hold them. Then I'll, you know, move the wheel this way and do the other side, then hopefully carefully slide that shaft. If I had a forehead camera or something, I gotta get that. All right, got my wheel holder here. A little trick I'm just showing all the tricks. I'm just loading that, now that I have those bottom bearings in, I'm just packing that grease a little in there to hold them. Then I'm just gonna rotate the whole wheel a little bit so they're upside down. I'm not gonna like try and press the bearings in upways or whatever you want to call that. Alrighty, packing them in there. Whoa, there's that vine in the way. Just gonna carefully keep doing that. I'm gonna keep packing those in so they don't fall out. Not too much, but enough. Better to have too much than have them fall out. And I'm gonna switch my wheel to the other side and start packing those other bearings in. This Virginia creeper, I don't know why people around Illinois keep calling it poison sumac. You can't eat it, but it shouldn't. That's poison sumac, that's real. I don't know, in forestry they called it Virginia. Sumac's a big long thing that grows out of wetlands, and usually the wetter it is, the more poison. The poison sumac is in the wetlands. Alright, action. I've got my bearings packed into the wheel here. And I did have one bearing get loose, and all I did was I took the wheel off my little stand here and carefully held it and dug it out with my little screwdriver in here. And so, you know, once you get the bearings in there, the grease kind of holds them in place. It's not too bad, for me at least. It's keeping the wheel vertical. This little fence worked out good. It's got, the vines don't hold it. That little edge there is enough to kind of course, you don't want to drop it. Alrighty, action. I carefully slid the axle through. I had some grease on that end of the axle. And now I've got this little hole here kind of that I'm just, that's where the bearings are. I'm just filling a little bit of the grease. I'll get into that hole. Then I have my seals in order from the right side up. And I'll get all those seals and nuts and stuff on there, and you don't want it too tight. You just want about the same amount of thread sticking out and have it spinning. Alright, action. The first thing on this wheel that goes on is what I call the race. Maybe it's the outer race, and it's got a little bit of an area a finger or wrench can grab, and I'm holding that side with my left hand so the axle doesn't go falling out. And I'm just carefully tightening that up, and that's where the cleaning process helps, because you clean all the sand and grit out of those threads with the different cleaners, and then it threads on easier. Alrighty, I've got that fixing nut with a bit of a race on it, hand tight, finger tight. And with these bike things, these races and bearings and stuff, this is just my opinion. I'm not a mechanic, so go to Park Tool or your local bike buddy. But beyond hand tight, you start getting the bearings too tight. So if you were to whap it with a wrench or something, you know, I wouldn't go much beyond. I'm sure you could go on the internet these days. It's 2026. Find a professional spec, but this is a 2000 or so period hub. And I'm impressed. Pretty simple to work on. These loose ball bearing things, I think they spin the fastest if you want a fast bike. Alright, bicycle bearing and cassette service. Hopefully I get all this combined, this footage, but I got it hand tight, and I use my screwdriver end pushed into my rag off the road to clean out this, because it doesn't really need much grease beyond where the bearings are. You're just adding weight and something that could collect a lot of dirt on the bike. Now I'll start getting these seals. The way I laid these seals out is basically so I know that I flip them over and they go on, and it's kind of dirty old grease. Maybe I'll wipe that off a little with the towel. Alright, getting Humpty Dumpty put back together again. I remember that the lock part of this nut goes down, and basically you get a lot of little components. It's like basically forming its own seal and maybe kind of crush washer. You hand tighten the, it's not, I called it an outer race, lock race, lock nut on the bearings. Then you've got a rubber seal, then another washer, then a little cap thing that holds the rubber seal, then another washer, and then this locking nut where from the beginning I remembered how many threads were out. You don't want it, the whole assembly, ever too tight. It's just pretty much not way beyond hand tight. Of course, that's that other thing, outer race nut, whatever secures the bearings, and then it's double nutted on the other side, and the quick release to the bike holds it all together, and the cassette goes on, and the lock ring to the cassette. There's a lot of other parts that kind of hold it all together. Well, I guess when you're looking down you just see this bunch of threads and nuts sticking up, lock nut or whatever, and then your cassette parts go over that, and a lock ring to that holds it all over that free hub body that spins, so when you stop you can coast so fast, and then when you pedal it engages, and then the weight is on those inner bearings that spin. Alright, I got it all back together. Yeah, and I spun it. They don't spin wonderful. I mean, it's a 20-year-old wheel, more than that, so in reality, once they get that old, maybe you buy a new wheel with the hub on it. But hey, we're keeping this thing going. I've never had one that just spins like awesome or something. Even the brand new ones kind of just amble along. Maybe that's the difference between a $100 wheel and $800 wheel. I don't know. Alright, getting the cassette back on. These cassettes, well, first off, the last little gears come separate, so I squeeze them on, and it does have a little bit of a different groove that it all kind of locks onto, so if you're like fishing for thinking it's just going to drop on there, it doesn't. And yeah, nice well cut teeth. I think the problem with this are two or three things. One, I found a few of these kind of beat up pretty bad in this ring. I don't know. And upon looking at this one, they're all a little different. Maybe it was just my own eyes, but I think a combination of the worn chain with just the worn cassette, it slipped. Because I took this off the one Kona, I threw it on this rock hopper that has a newer chain, and it seemed to spin fine even with that old cassette. So, but you know, keeping these things up and you know, going up a steep hill or trying to pedal off in front of a car and this chain slips and the car's coming, and you just keep the stuff new. Alright, I've got that on there, and I got that kind of finger tight, and I got to put on this 1-inch bolt from Park Tool, the FR52G. Slides in there and it locks into that ring that tightens the cassette, and it kind of makes some, I don't know, scraping noise when you're tightening it, but I've heard people on videos do it and it's kind of normal. It's just I don't know, kind of a loud, I'm ruining stuff type of sound. But this takes, I believe, according to the internet, 40 Newton meters, but don't quote me on it. So for anybody who didn't know that, that's a fair amount of torque. I'm a type, I got Popeye the Sailorman arms, or at least half of Popeye the Sailor Man, so I don't want to break it, but it takes a good amount of torque to put 40 Newton meters. I think a Newton meter is like 10 bucks Canadian or 2.2 times a pound foot or something. But you can hear it just kind of scraping along, and that's just normal as far as I know, and it makes that a little bit when it comes off. Alright, action, getting my wheels put back together. They're 3x9 bikes, similar periods, so it's nice to have the interchangeable parts. I was able to chuck the one wheel into the other bike and just kind of experiment to see what was exactly bad, you know, how did, you know, is it the cassette, is it the chain? The bike shop measured the chain on this, said it was still good, but I think it was on the fringe, you know. So it's got a new cassette, new grease in the bearings. You do what you can for it. These brakes are super stiff. I can hardly even move them with my hands, so I'm going to pull that apart and pull those off and kind of grease them and reset the brakes on the two bikes, since, you know, the rim widths are slightly different when I had the two wheels swapped. So, you know, and you want to remember, of course, to hook up the brake and make sure everything spins after working on something, or you don't want to just jump on it and start pedaling.